Hey, Talkhouse listeners, it's Josh Modell. In addition to our regular episode this week, we're bringing you something a little special in your feed today. I'm here with Jason Woodbury of Aquarium Drunkard. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Very glad to be here.
So, Jason is the host of Aquarium Drunkard's podcast Transmissions, which he's going to give us a little bit of rundown for the 2 or 3 people out there who don't already know it as part of the Talkhouse podcast network.
There might be more than 2, but Aquarium Drunkard is a music blog. We think of ourselves as an online music magazine that was founded by Justin Gage in 2005, back at really even before the height of the blog era, but sort of at the onset of the music blog era. And Justin started it then really just as a way to share with his friends what he was listening to. And of course, it started to catch on. Many people who didn't know Justin Gage at all personally started reading, including myself and so many other contributors now. And Justin has kept Aquarium Drunkard really true to his vision for it. And it's an independent music outlet. We're not owned by any big parent company or anything weird like that. And really the idea is at Aquarium Drunkard that we're just focused on the music that we want to share with people, and doesn't really have to be tied to a specific release date. We write about music new and old. It doesn't have to be tied to a big news peg. It doesn't have to be tied to a hype cycle or a number on a review that's really catchy or whatever. So it's really just sort of more about like what the contributors are interested in sharing. And Justin has a radio component. He does a show with Sirius XMU, and we've got other, musical programs through our friends at Dublab. But yeah, the Transmissions podcast was something that I started in its current iteration back in 2016 as an interview show. And it's just kind of grown and had a few different formats over the years. But since about 2020, the format has more or less been me talking with a musician or a writer or artist every week and just having kind of a long form, often pretty heady conversation.
Yeah, you really go deep. And I think, it fits really well with what Talkhouse does because, as you were sort of saying, like these are music fans and that's what absolutely comes first. You guys are excited about music, and clearly listening to you interview people, like, I don't know if you're doing a ton of research or if you just know about all these people really well, but you really get in there.
I do a lot of research, and I think a lot about the stuff that I listen to various artists' work, and I'm more or less usually end up sort of gravitating towards sort of similar zones with people. I want to talk about creativity. I want to talk about the origins of creativity. I want to talk about how people practice their art. I want to talk about where ideas come from, influences, personal history, but also just for me, really, I think there's a kind of a spiritual component, or a metaphysical or a component of art that allows us to talk about even things like consciousness, or time, or the immaterial, or telepathy. Who knows? As it be. Whatever that might be, I try to keep open to that sort of stuff. I'm drawn to sort of far out, sometimes mystical explorations of art. And it's one thing I find that, like, even when an artist is like not at all that way, right? They're not geared, they're not woo-woo, they're not metaphysical, they're not any of these things. It's still shocking to me how often when describing how art happens, they start resorting to the same kind of language, right? That romantic, mystical, flowery language of like, I don't always know where it comes from. And there's a sense of mystery to it. And to me, I've never wanted this show to be about explaining away mystery. It's more like kind of approaching it with maybe a little bit of humility. And I find that artists are just usually pretty receptive to open conversations like that. Not the same talks they have, hopefully, every podcast they hit up. Right. You know what I mean?
Is there an episode, or I guess I should say, is there a guest in the 9 seasons you've been doing the show that stands out as like, wow, that really went, either sort of mystical like that or just particularly deep in creativity? Is there a conversation that stands out that kind of blew you away as an interviewer?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate on the show, to talk to so many of my all-time favorite artists. But one that comes to mind for sure was my conversation with Bill Frisell,
Oh,
the incredible jazz guitarist known for, jazz, country, whatever, however you want to, define his work. It kind of defies categorization, which is one of the things I like about him. But,
mm,
anybody who knows Bill Frisell sort of thinks of him as this serene kind of like Buddha type character, very very zen, very thoughtful, very seemingly just like guileless,
mm.
and the first question I asked him was what pissed him off? Like what does Bill Frisell look like when he's pissed? And he opened up and it was like nobody had asked him that. It was fun. It was an incredible open to the conversation. And then from there, I mean, yeah, we started talking about telepathy and he's telling me stories about walking through the airport, thinking a song in his head, thinking a melody, playing it in his head, and then out loud, one of his traveling companions in the band sings the conclusion
Oh,
of the
wow.
melody where he left off in his head.
Huh.
And he was like, what is that? And I was like, do you believe in telepathy? And Bill Frisell was like, well, what else is that? What else could that be? It was like great, and so that's the sort of thing. It's like I try to have pretty good as you said, intel or whatever, right? Like
Right.
I try to know at least somewhat what I'm talking about, but I'm pretty much always open to the conversation taking a complete left turn and leaving behind whatever is on my my Google Doc. I'm
Yeah,
open to it.
that's awesome. Are you able? I know we have season 10 is starting very soon,
Yeah,
maybe kind of right when this is airing. So,
yeah.
are you able to tease some guests for the big 10th season?
Oh my gosh, I would love to because last season I have a real affinity for the number 9, so I really thought of season 9 as like a kind of a big accomplishment in a weird way, and I said to myself sort of over and over again as I was putting it together that if there's a 10th season, we got to go all out, right?
Uh,
I just kept saying that to myself. And then, of course, when we concluded the 9th season, I immediately started working on the 10th season. So the question of whether or not it was going to happen went away. I got fully into it, but I'm really excited. So, yeah, we're launching on February 19th with the great Will Oldham, Bonnie Prince Billy,
nice.
which harkens back to the earliest incarnations of the Transmissions podcast as an interview show. Will was my very first guest. And for the listeners who've been with us all the way back to 2016, they will remember how bad that episode sounded. And that was all my fault. So
Okay.
they're going to love hearing Will in crisp, high fidelity. But after that, we've got a fantastic conversation with Ali Shaheed Muhammad and Adrian Young, whose project is Jazz is Dead,
Yeah.
and a really incredible conversation about Los Angeles, the fires, about jazz, about preservation, about moving art forward. I'm really excited to share that one. On March 5th, we're going to have the producer Steve Lillywhite, who I've been listening to, well, I guess my entire life, listening to Steve Lillywhite produced work. So we talk about all sorts of great stuff, his work with Eno, Daniel Lanois, U2, Dave Matthews Band. Everybody's always been begging for us to cover more Dave Matthews Band in the Transmissions feed. So we're finally going to give them something.
You're
And
bowing
then
to the Matthews fans.
yeah, we're bowing to the Dave contingent. And then yeah, on March 12th we'll have the great writer Lucy Santee. So that's a little teaser of our first month of shows, and each one of them is just covers so much ground, and so I'm really excited to kick this one off.
That's awesome. And I assume people can find this is a plug. Are you ready? People can find the Transmissions podcast wherever they find their podcast normally. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And you can also listen direct at aquariumdrunkard.com. We've always had the site, made sure that like if you are a Aquarium Drunkard fan, that you can experience it on the site. That's important to us because we think of it as like, part of it's an outgrowth of of Aquarium Drunkard proper. And so you can always listen there as well. But yeah, available wherever you find podcasts. And we're always grateful for people who leave reviews and all that stuff. So that's a nod to do that if you're so inclined. We get really thoughtful emails from listeners, which I prefer even to reviews, but both is nice. So
That's awesome. Thanks, Jason. Hopefully people will head over and check it out if they haven't already at aquariumdrunkard.com. Is that right?
aquariumdrunkard.com. And last year, in advance of our 20th anniversary, we launched a subscription element to the site to where, we're asking people to support independent music journalism by just subscribing. And we know as well as anybody, as we navigate the kind of weird ins and outs of the internet media ecosystem, that, not everybody can subscribe to everything that they want all the time. But we've been trying to be really point blank with people to say, subscribe for a month and see how it helps your listening life. Does it get you interested in some things you wouldn't have heard? Encouraging people to be creative and, maybe support our site for a few months and then go support another site and come back and catch up on what you missed. We understand that it's like a weird thing, but, in order to keep this thing sustainable and to make sure that people keep doing it, we found that this was the right move, even though the Transmissions podcast is available to all as our one of our olive branches out there to people.
That's awesome. I think we got it all. Thanks so much, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.